Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Just Good Games. So, the decade is coming to an end. This has been an absolutely massive decade for video games. So many events, so many great games, and I have had the really tough job of whittling it down to just 10 games. 10 games of the decade. This is probably in no particular order as it'd be so difficult to separate them, but these are the games which I think are the best 10 games of the 2010s. So let's crack on with number 10. But first, heavy spoiler alert and a brief message. This is gaming icon and cardboard box enthusiast Solid Snake creeping up and surprising an unsuspecting Italian plumber. Solid Snake has subscribed to this channel and he would like you to do the same. So please hit subscribe now and don't let Solid Snake down. I think I would get some harsh words in the comment section if The Witcher 3 was not on this list. What a game, and really what can I say about this game that hasn't already been said? Well, I'm going to try. The Witcher 3 is probably, and that's a really strong probably, the greatest action RPG of all time. Maybe. The world is so dense and full of life. The main story is fantastic, but it has so many side missions. I finished every single one as well. Some which are as interesting and as detailed as the main storyline. I think that is probably The Witcher 3's biggest legacy. Now, every game which has side missions tries to craft them as well as The Witcher 3 did. Side missions are no longer distractions or collectathons prolong the game. Well, some games still do it, but mostly they add another layer to the lore and to the overall experience. Every character has such a dense backstory, and Geralt is one of the best video game protagonists of all time. He is now an icon. Some people diss the combat, but it's surprisingly layered. This list is not in any particular order, but if I had to order it, this would definitely be top 3. Also, the DLC is how DLC should be done. It just expands on the world and offers pretty much another game in the Blood and Wine expansion. I don't know how CD Projekt Red are going to top this with Cyberpunk, but I'm interested to see if they can do it. In my opinion, Super Mario Odyssey is the best Nintendo game of the decade, although another game on this list pushes it close. This is everything I want from a Mario game. Big open world stages, check. Loads of moons and creative ways to collect them, check. Pure innovation, check. The right amount of nostalgia, check. And is it fun? Check, check, check. When you think the Italian plumber's games can't get any better, he just seems to pull it out of the bag. Cappy is an absolutely great addition, and possessing creatures makes for an amazing new game mechanic, especially when you possess Bowser at the end. All the new stages are amazing. My favourite is New Donk City, and playing the festival was my favourite part of the entire game and actually brought a tear to my eye. It just shows how far Mario has come, and that is really what this game is. It's just a massive celebration of all things Mario. Some people think it's too easy and it's too short. Well, you can blast through the story pretty quickly, but the real difficulty is getting all the moons, and that last moon on the darkest side of the moon is especially difficult. Also the jump rope, but nah. Also, the way they twist the story at the end with Princess Peach not picking Mario or Bowser is awesome. And then the return to the Mushroom Kingdom is just perfect. The bar has been raised by Nintendo once again, and it has one of the best theme songs ever. There really isn't anything else like Nier Automata. It has 24 endings, requires 3 playthroughs to get the proper ending. It switches genre on a whim, and the story is somehow a sort of commentary on life and death and what it means to be alive and like sentience in robots. In a decade which has seen Platinum Games emerge as the #1 hack and slasher developer, this is the jewel in their crown. The action is fast paced and frantic. The bosses are fantastic as well and just fill the screen. Each character you play as has a very distinct style, and even though they are androids, you grow to really feel for them, and also a lot of the quirky side characters as well. This game's opening sees you start off piloting an aircraft in a Star Fox 64 style game. It then swaps from a sides to top down and then to 3D, all piloting this aircraft. They then land and you make your way through a facility as 2B, which again switches from top down to 3D to 2D and finally back to your hack and slash, your platinum bread and butter, and you take on a big old boss. That's the mission statement, and it never lets up. There's plenty of side missions, loads of weapons, and the world is fantastic. This game is just full of character. The end credits are also a game within itself, and it's just a really cool way to end such an amazing and unique game. This game was always going to be on here. This game redefines what a Legend of Zelda game could be. The first really proper open world Zelda game does away with traditional dungeons and replaces them with pure exploration and freedom. You really can play this game how you want, and that's the beauty of it. If you really want to, within 10 to 15 minutes of starting the game, you can go and take on Ganon, but then you'll be missing out on all of the great story moments and the joy of playing the 4 divine beasts, who sort of serve as the game's dungeons. There are just so many options in this game and so many things to discover. There's hundreds of shrines which have puzzles for you to solve in them, loads of side missions to take on, and just loads of things to see and do. There's also loads of little nods to the wider Zelda lore, and the side characters are all quirky again and great. Your Link is probably the most customizable Link of the entire series as well. This game is really quite hard to put into worlds, as each player can have a truly different experience from the other players, as there's just so much freedom, and that is the beauty of this game and why it has to be one of the games of the decade. God of War on the PlayStation 4, we all knew this was going to be good, but I think few of us thought that it was going to be this good. A game that managed to redefine an already iconic video game character in Kratos. The move to Norse mythology works so well, and the story adds so much more depth to Kratos. He was full of regret and doesn't want his son to follow in his footsteps of violence and death. The gameplay is somehow still the fast-paced and frantic action of the old games, but somehow made even better with the move to the over-the-shoulder camera. And probably the best new weapon in games of the decade, the Leviathan axe. Although there's not as many boss battles in this game, when there is a boss battle, they still manage to live up to the series' legacy, especially the fight against the stranger at the start. There's so much to do and so many optional battles, like the battles against the Valkyries, the dragons. The Valkyries are so Dark Souls. The twists and turns of the story work really well, and it sets it nicely up for a sequel. The core of this game is obviously the relationship between Kratos and Atreus, and he is actually probably one of the best companion characters in games. He comes in very handy sometimes and is never a liability. Everything about this game just clicked and it just worked, and it works so well, and so that is why God of War had to be one of my games of the decade. I recently did a video on this game, so you already know how much I love this game. As I said in that video, this game is just full of iconic moments. The giraffes, Sarah's death, fighting David, and of course that ending. It makes for just a phenomenal game. This is really the pinnacle of what Naughty Dog have been doing over the past 10 to 15 years. They have just taken everything that they learned from the Uncharted series and just improved upon it. Is it my favourite Naughty Dog game? Probably not actually, but Uncharted 2 came out in the last decade. When people say to me, oh, video games don't have emotion, or they're not as good as films, or they're just for kids, I always direct them to this game and say, play the first half an hour to an hour, or watch the first half an hour to an hour of The Last of Us on YouTube or something like that, and tell me video games are not art. and tell me they're not as good as films, because I truly believe that this is one of the greatest and most engaging stories in a video game ever, in entertainment ever. The gameplay is pretty much Uncharted, but with crafting. And when I said Atreus was probably one of the best companions of all time, his strong competition is Ellie, as she once again adds to the experience and is never a liability. Also, the fact that you play as her adds another level to this game, and I just can't wait to play number 2 next year. This may not be in many people's list, but it's most definitely in mine. I love this game. The style and gameplay is like the definition of a one more go game. Just a pure boss runner and difficult as hell. You take on amazing boss after boss, learning its attack patterns and figuring out how to take it down. The art style is so reminiscent of the early Disney animations, an art style which has actually not really been used or explored in many games over the years. Maybe Disney has something to do with that. This game is just so simple yet so effective. It is just a bit of a throwback really to almost the days of like the Mega Drive and SNES. This game just has so much character, and you can feel the love and attention to detail that has gone into this game. It definitely also falls into the Souls brackets of difficulty here, and actually tallies up the amount of times you have died, so you can see how rubbish or how good you are at this game. I can't remember how many times I died, but it was a lot. The main character, Cuphead, is also a great new sort of gaming mascot, which Microsoft have now. I know it's on the Switch, but obviously Microsoft had it to start off with, and I hope they do Cuphead 2 soon. Maybe Xbox Series X's launch, Microsoft. Come on. This is another sort of smaller title like Cuphead, but still an absolutely amazing game. I could have put Limbo in here, but I think I just prefer Inside just a little bit more. This game only takes like 10 hours to complete, but it is one of the best gaming experiences that I've ever had. It has you hooked right from the start. Why am I running from these people? What's happened? These are all mysteries that really aren't solved, but just sort of part of the game's charm. It's ambiguous and open-ended. The game mechanics are fun, and the puzzles are not overly complicated, but still require a good level of skill to complete. I would say it is actually a tiny bit easier than Limbo in that respect. And then at the end, it just turns everything on its head, and you become this human blob type thing, wrecking everything in your way, like destroying buildings, running through walls, and then the last image of you as the blob washed up on the beach, just sort of dead, is powerful and will stick with you for a long time after. There was always going to be a From Software game on this list, and I could have gone for Dark Souls, but my personal favourite from all their games is this. It's Bloodborne. It was my first dip into From's universe, and it was a bit of a culture shock really, but it had me hooked from the start, and now I've gone back and played all of the Souls games since. What I didn't realise at the time was how fast paced and actually more aggressive this game was than some of the other Dark Souls games. I think this made me like it more. It takes a while to train yourself in the style of these games, but once you get it, it's so rewarding. Beating a boss in Bloodborne is such an achievement, so finishing the whole thing makes you feel amazing. The boss design is fantastic, and so is the world. In these games, the story is not really spelled out for you, so you have to sort of uncover it for yourself. The combat and the different weapon types make for a varied and great experience. You somehow have to be aggressive and conservative all at the same time. This game has so many secrets, and it's totally up to you to figure them out. This game started my love affair with From Software's games, and I hope that it continues long into the next decade. I'm looking at you, Elden Ring. Right, so I have cheated a tiny bit here, but I feel like Red Dead 1 and Red Dead 2 are pretty much like two parts of one whole game, and you can't have one without the other now. It's all about John Marston and his quest for redemption, that's the title, and doing well by his family, tracking down his old gang so he can give his wife and son the life they deserve. The gut punch of an ending in number 1 is so fantastic, and then number 2 gives a whole new context to all these events. Through the eyes of Arthur Morgan, you see the decline of Dutch and his gang, and John's longing for a better life, and through your actions you give him that chance. The ending of number 2 is just so bittersweet, knowing what happens in number 1. These are Rockstar's best games, in my opinion. GTA 5 pushes it, and so do the Warriors, but the Red Dead Redemption, the 2 games, are Rockstar's best games. The missions are fantastic, and the gameplay in 2 is just so good. I know people say it's slow, but I love a game which takes its time. These games are art, and the games just do what they say on the tin. It's all about redemption. The 2 protagonists are so perfect, and you really feel for both of them, and even you feel for Dutch at times. You see a man who's losing his grip on his life and reality, and it drives him to do more desperate things. Playing the end of number 2 as John is such fan service, and building the house and farm had me smiling so much. I almost don't want to number 3, as I feel like this is like the Godfather of games. It's like the Godfather films. You have Godfather Part 1 and Godfather Part 2, and they form this one epic film, and I feel like Red Dead is the same. It's just one epic game, and it doesn't need a third, as the story is complete now. If Rockstar want to somehow remaster or remake 1 and then stick it with 2 and make it into one big game, that would be absolutely fantastic, and I would buy it again. So this is why Red Dead 1 and 2 had to be on this list. So there you have it. Those were my top 10 games of the 2010s, of the decade. It was really difficult. There's so many games I missed out. There's like honourable mentions go to Death Stranding after just finishing it. GTA 5, unfortunately, only just didn't sneak a place, and there's obviously tons and tons of games which probably could have gone in that top 10, but those were my personal 10 favourites. So thank you for watching the video. Like, share, subscribe, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and once again, you have been watching Just Good Games.